meeting.
Yeah.
Let me start with an apology for being late the meeting. And I thank every one of you for your valuable time today to spend for the first session here, and to the organizers for giving me this wonderful platform to share and exchange insights with fellow professionals and industry colleagues. When I first suggested the topic, they have put this in the technology talks, and I told them it doesn't belong to technology. The theme of the topic is, of course, about digital transformation, but the heart of the matter belongs to project management. So we have to put it here. We are witnessing today the emerging technologies exponentially surrounding us from every facet of life. And every industry has been embracing this technology in different scales and different dimensions. Whether it's artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, big data analytics, smart technologies, 3D printing, robotics, automation, blockchain, whatever it is. But I really think, do we really have to understand every technology in depth? It will be impossible for every professional to do that. As construction professionals, I believe we don't have to do that at all. We just need to understand how each one of these technologies is going to impact the processes and functions in our construction industry, project management in particular. So from that particular context, we are trying to examine a few cases where construction industry can be impacted by adopting digital technologies. But we have to start from the standpoint where we find the hard truth. This is a study conducted by MIT and Deloitte last year, and they have really charted every industry in terms of digital maturity. And can you see where is construction? Yeah. Is it a surprise? I don't think so. Yeah, I agree with you. The same study has been reinforced by McKinsey again in another survey. And can you see the construction here? Well, we have improved a little bit just about hunting and agriculture. Honestly, when we talk to professionals in different industries, whether it's financial industry or ICT, insurance, healthcare, education, we really feel envy the way they have progressed in adopting digital transformation. So for construction professionals, one of the biggest challenges for myself when I do research for case studies on implementing construction in digital transformation, it's really hard to find any case studies. But for example, if you want to talk to a finance professional and how they have embraced blockchain technology, they can give you a lot of examples. If you talk to a telecom professional, how they have implemented data analytics, they can give you a lot of use cases. But we really have a weakness in this segment. Artificial intelligence is not a point of our talk today, but I just wanted to show where we stand in adopting artificial intelligence in construction. Again, we are one of the last in spending for AI investment. So, whom we have to blame for this? It's not anybody's fault. There are traditional weaknesses that construction industry has been inherited, and we will see some of the main parts here. Every project is by nature is unique and temporary in its attribute. So it's really difficult to establish sort of an ecosystem where every single stakeholder will stay within the same system if you go for a digital transformation. Priorities are different for every project. We have a volatile business atmosphere, we have an unstable workforce, we have multiple stakeholders with different priorities and interests, and everybody will ultimately look for ROI. So from a project context, it is really difficult to establish the real value that you get from a digital transformation. So maybe it's more worthwhile to see, rather than looking at a construction project ecosystem for an organization, a construction organization. I call it a digital twin because one day, I don't know when it's going to happen, one day a construction company will be able to digitize every single function of its processes, whether it's document control, whether it's surveying, it's site activities, whether it's internal processes. I mean, basically every single process will be automated. It's a matter of time. Now, potential use cases that we can examine where digital transformation can make an impact. Typically, we have different examples here. These are not real cases. These are basically assumptions where we can make a change. It can be in the design phase, in scheduling, in procurement, in asset tracking, in quality management, contracts, performance, and most of the functions, document control. However, we still have very strict time constraints today, and we are just going to examine 3 areas within construction where we can think about adopting digital transformation. The first one is contract management. We will examine how blockchain technology will make an impact on improving some of the processes in contract management. And secondly, we will just skip through asset management where IoT, Internet of Things, can make some enhancements. And finally, project control, where we will apply data analytics. Before we move on, I just want to know about how are we familiar with emerging technologies, particularly blockchain. Can we have a raise of hands? How about IoT? Anyone? Okay. And data analytics? Good. Okay. So for the sake of the continuity of the discussion, let me go through the fundamentals of blockchain in a short way. The last few decades, we have seen the emergence of internet, and internet has been the brilliant platform for exchange of information. We used to have sending information in the form of files. So, for example, if I were to send an information to some other person, I will send it in the form of a file, a PDF file, a presentation, a spreadsheet, a Word file. I send it to him, and basically I'm sending him a copy, not the original. I'm still retaining the original with me. So after I send him the file, if I make a change in my file, that's not reflected in his file. If he make a change, that doesn't come back to me. For information exchange, still it doesn't have too much of a problem. But when you have to transfer something of value, whether it's a financial transaction, whether it's bonds, boards, intellectual properties, land title deeds, these sort of things that carries a value. Sending a copy is a terrible idea, right? If I send you $1,000 and I still keep the original with me, does that make any sense? So this has been called double spending problem, and usually we used to tackle this problem by the usage of powerful intermediaries, like financial transactions we used to carry out with the help of credit card companies, money exchanges, banks, and all those institutions. But there are growing problems. Number one, they are, as intermediaries, carrying a vast amount of data pertaining to every single customer in terms of the KYC data. The problem with that's susceptible for cyber threats and security, and threat for our privacy. Number two, they are charging you money for every single transaction. So how about if there is a system whether two persons can transact each other from peer to peer without an intermediary? This problem was solved in 2008. When we had the financial industry crash in 2008, around the same time, a research paper was published by some person called Satoshi Nakamoto. They suggested a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin and the underlying technology of blockchain. And this technology was addressing the problem of double spending. Now let's examine how the technology works. If I'm sending you $1,000, basically I transmit the data to the network, the Bitcoin blockchain network. This network contains millions of computers. They call it nodes, spread across the entire globe. So once this transaction has been happened, every 10 minutes, just like the heartbeat of the network, all the transactions that has happened during the 10 minutes will be validated by a group of people called miners. They are basically volunteers, and they are getting rewarded in terms of the cryptocurrency. In this case, it's a Bitcoin. So they do certain algorithms to validate the transaction, and they come to a consensus. Once that validation is complete, it will be added as a block. This block will be added to the existing chain of blocks. Once this block is created, it is completely immutable. It cannot be hacked. Theoretically, if somebody asks me how it can be possible, I will tell you. If I want to hack the information within a block, I have to alter the data in that particular block, and the previous block, and the previous block, and the entire chain of blocks in the blockchain system. Not in one computer, but the entire computers across the globe, simultaneously. So it's safe to assume that it's an impossible task. So this feature of blockchain have brought tremendous value for almost all industries, all businesses across different functions. So the features we have showed here, it's a decentralized peer-to-peer system. It is driven by consensus. It is executed by miners, and it is tamper-proof. Now, a wider classification of the blockchain applications today can be said like static and dynamic. The static part in blockchain we use to store information related to KYC, the ID proof, the DID title deeds. This sort of static data can be utilized in the static part of blockchain application. On the dynamic part, we talk about transactions, the financial transactions and all other type of transactions. And something in the middle called hybrid type of blockchain implementation. It is dealing with something called smart contract. It's a unique solution that has been introduced by blockchain network. This is a wide landscape of different use cases of blockchain across different industries. We are not going to touch about it. I used to deliver most of the use cases in blockchain in different segments, but today our scope is not to go through deep in blockchain application. We'll just pass them. If you want to implement blockchain, you just ask yourself a few questions, just like a checklist. If you really have to do transactions between two different parties, if you really need to have a verifiable audit of all the transactions that have happened, if you share a common database with different data items, not just within the same organization, but across multiple organizations, and if you are using any kind of intermediaries for these transactions, if any one of this is part of your process, blockchain will add tremendous value for your business. Okay. The second technology we talk about is IoT. Now, IoT as a discipline has been emerged perhaps in the last 1 decade. But originally, the concept was existing long time back. I was part of a power project some time back, even before I heard IoT as a discipline. We used to implement systems called distributed control systems, SCADA systems, PLC, the programmable logic controller. These sort of devices has been implemented in different parts of the site remotely, and all these devices has been communicating to each other using different communication methodologies. But later on, especially after the emergence of smartphones and smart technologies applied within home automation systems and all, we started hearing about a terminology called IoT. So basically the communication has been existing long back, but devices started communicating to each other a little bit more smartly, applying more intelligence. So IoT has been growing, you can see the numbers here, by 2025 it is expected to have 11 trillion worth of market. And most of the use cases, as we can see here, I don't see construction here, but as I said in the beginning, we are just dreaming about some implementation cases that could happen in construction field. Data analytics, just like IoT, data has been existing ever since, but we did not consider it as a discipline, a separate discipline ever since. But the last decade, the worth of data has been recognized as one of the biggest assets of any person, any organization. And we started considering data as a discipline, how we can extract more value by analyzing and synthesizing data. Every interface within an organization, every interface between organizations, within every processes, a lot of data has been generated. The only thing, we just wanted to exploit that data in a smart way to understand how we can improve our processes, our practices, our procedures, our systems with the help of that particular insight. I was part of a project in implementing power systems for the traffic network in one of the cities. And within the same program, there was another project for implementing a traffic counting system for every intersection. The purpose of that project was simply to do counting of vehicles that is passing through every intersection. And within a certain period of time, they wanted to collect the data about the number of vehicles, the time, duration, which time is the biggest peak time, and they wanted to really extract a lot of information from them to understand the pattern of traffic. And this example actually gave me an idea about the worth of data, how much information, how much, because the data is basically a raw material. It doesn't give you anything as numbers. If somebody gives you a set of numbers, it doesn't make any sense to you. You have to analyze it and you have to make that data into information. And that set of information, if you present to somebody, you will make it as a report. This report will give you enough insights to make decision making effectively. Okay, so let's go back to the first function in construction management that we are examining today, the contract management. A typical construction project, I would say it's an ecosystem within which you have perhaps hundreds or even thousands of interfaces and processes. You are dealing with, as a construction company, you might be dealing with maybe 20 or 50 companies in different scales. It could be your client, your consultant, your fellow contractors, your subcontractors, your suppliers. So every organization have certain level of transactions happening between every single entity. You know, the single biggest problem for every transaction is the cost of transaction. And that cost of transaction comes from one single element, trust, establishment of trust. The problem for a construction project, as we said in the beginning, it's unique. If you have worked with, let's say, 25 companies within, as part of project A, you might have established a relationship with them. And once that project is over, you say goodbye to most of them. You start project B, after a couple of years, you will have a new set of companies to work with. So all the relationships, all the kind of trust that you have established with the previous set of companies doesn't give you any value for the new project. So establishment of trust is the biggest challenge for any project transaction. Now, we talked about blockchain in the beginning. One of the fundamental feature of blockchain is trust, because blockchain transactions are based on consensus. It's validated by not a central party, it's validated by all the group of people in the network. And we have a validation system based on trust. So how we can establish blockchain in order to validate trust? We'll find it. The single biggest innovation that blockchain have introduced in this context is smart contract. We spoke about Bitcoin blockchain as an introduction. There was another blockchain solution called Ethereum. It was introduced by a person called Vitalik Buterin from Toronto. But the outstanding feature of this blockchain was a concept called smart contract. And Ethereum was proposing another cryptocurrency called Ether. Now, how a smart contract works, before we continue, let's see that. A smart contract is basically, it's a program. We know typically a contract contains a set of terms and conditions, what each party have to observe in order to complete the transactions, what are the payment terms. I mean, basically all the agreements that we have made as part of that particular transaction will be in the contract. Now, there are problems. Let's consider typically a construction ecosystem. You have a hierarchical parties, and there are different levels of privileges existing between the organizations. A smart contract will give you two advantages. Number one, it doesn't give priority or privilege to any party in the contract. And number two, there is no ambiguity. The ambiguity of a contract will always lead to conflicts and gray areas and further to litigations. But a smart contract will execute all the terms and conditions in the contract by default. As we said, since it's self-executing, one of the biggest obstacles in a construction transaction is about release of payments. That will also be automated. So there will be no stoppage of cash flow in order to seamlessly automate the entire process. We said about contracts, ambiguity and who owns the contract, since it is based on a trusted network, everybody have the same set of privileges existing. Asset management is how we can enable asset management with the help of IoT system. We basically have different kind of equipment, heavy equipment, and even small devices deployed across different sites. Most of the time what happens is that every day we have different priorities, and in order to meet different deadlines and different deliverables, we tend to neglect about the working condition of the equipment in terms of its maintenance situation, in terms of its operating condition itself. I remember the quality management people and the health and safety guys used to do inspections and audits periodically in the sites. They just wanted to see the working condition of, let's say, a protective equipment, firefighting system, if it is still working properly, if the expiry date is over, if it is really calibrated. This sort of information, somebody have to manually do it. What if we have a system? All the data will be alerted to you automatically as part of a trusted network. This is something, an example that IoT can bring value to. So, as per the survey, the biggest value added by implementing IoT system is data tracking. Project control. We don't need to emphasize the importance of project control. It's part of our life as project managers. And one of the most brilliant tool that we use is earned value method, value management. And value management, we used to execute this exercise perhaps in the initial phase of the project, not regularly, maybe in 3 months or maybe in 6 months. But when it comes to the final phases of the project, we need to execute it a little bit more frequently, and we have to carry a lot of numbers. By generating the numbers or indexes, like the cost performance index or the schedule performance index as part of the EVM, we are trying to analyze the health of the project, how far we are going to delay the project schedule, how far we are going to overrun the budget. So what if you have a system, the data can be analyzed a little bit more smartly to give you every single day decisions that you need to carry out in order to adjust the delays. So for example, a very complex project with perhaps thousands of WBS packages, you can't imagine how you have to track down the causes of delay. So for example, if you find that the delay is happening for certain work package, you will be able to dig much deeper into the WBS and find out exactly which work package or which set of work packages are giving you these delays and the troubles. You can really investigate that. So analytics is one of the best tools that you can implement in the earned value method in order to find the project health check. Quality control and risk assessment. We have, I believe, a lot of project management professionals here, and we don't need to emphasize the importance of data analysis, data gathering, data representation. This is one of the most important tools as part of almost every single project management process. We know about 49 processes in the BIG5. Most of the processes, I remember that we have data of the input. So if you have a system, how you can analyze the data more smartly as part of the data analytics, that gives you added strength to control your project. Finally, as any technology implementation, we will have a set of challenges. As we said in the beginning, we have construction business related limitations. We don't need to elaborate more on that. But on the technology front, there are some unique limitations. For blockchain, for example, there is a limitation for the number of transactions that every blockchain can accommodate within a certain period of time. So when we talk about a complex construction project, when there are multiple transactions happening simultaneously, maybe which cannot be accommodated with that particular blockchain system, we'll have a limitation. Number two is about the server capacity of Bitcoin blockchain. It's estimated to be 20 times more than Google servers in the entire world. So you can imagine the kind of server requirement that you need to implement a blockchain system. Energy requirement. This is also an important part. If you implement an IoT system across the different sites, you need to ensure the availability of power for every single device. and secondly about communication infrastructure. So these are technical and energy challenges, and financial challenges coming from how you can leverage this technology to get the ROI. Every project have a set of organizations. Once the project is over, the organizations are not anymore related to each other. So who will take the lead to make deploy certain technology? So everybody have their everybody have different priorities. So they don't really find a value in order to implement such an expensive system, whether it's blockchain or IoT or data analytics, whatever. In order just to implement in one particular project, unless it can be adopted by every company, perhaps as part of the entire project economy. We have really strict time constraints, so my apology again to pass through the slides very quickly because the organizers were really scaring me from behind.
number likho.
Just a few words about myself. I'm a practicing consultant in project management and strategy and trainings in PMP and other related courses. The final word that I have is adoption of digital technology is not something that you can stop with. It's just a matter of time. You cannot delay it. You cannot deny it. You can just delay it. Thank you very much.